Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside the Newsroom. I'm Summer Radishat. On Inside the Newsroom, we bring you the trending stories of the KELOLAND area, and we bring in our newsroom staff members to talk about these stories so that you can get a unique perspective to the stories you see every day on KELOLAND News and on KELOLAND.com. Now, it is Thursday. I like to call it Friday's Eve because guess what? The weekend is almost here. Well, I hope everybody had a great day yesterday. I'm not sure exactly how you spent your Wednesday, but I do know that there was a group of volunteers that spent time giving back. From peeling apples to chopping squash, lots of helping hands were busy in the basement of Wesley United Methodist Church in Sioux Falls. The volunteers were preparing foods like canned applesauce and bags of veggies for the freezer. And then that food is going to be distributed to pantries and nonprofits. What a great reason. The event was put on by Food Rescue 605, a group organized by Sioux Falls Thrive. Look at how yummy those veggies are. I love vegetables. I know I feel happier. I feel healthier when I'm eating vegetables. Last night, I did this fun little Greek salad that had cucumber, onion, some olives, and like feta and Greek. It was a very Greeky salad. I mixed that all up and I chowed it down. I could eat that, I think, every day. So we'll turn into the show. We've got a full one ready for you today. Julia Lynn takes us to all the construction on Cliff Avenue and tells us what the Lincoln High School students need to know ahead of heading there for this school year. And then Carly Phillips was down in Hudson checking in on them after a storm tore through their town 2 weeks ago. But first, Dan Santella tells us how the anti-encampment ordinance has changed. That's coming up on Inside the Newsroom. Welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. A proposed ban on encampments or tents in public places in Sioux Falls is now a lot different from how it was first introduced. The Sioux Falls City Council approved amendments to the measure, which could significantly impact the community's homeless population. Dan Santella brings us the latest on how the changes happened.
Sioux Falls City Council Chair Rich Mercoris told his fellow councilors and the public this week that homelessness was his motivation to serve on the council.
This is a major reason why I wanted to participate, is to make sure that when we're making decisions for our community, we're considering those who oftentimes get forgotten.
Democratic state lawmaker Caden Whitman of Sioux Falls has similar convictions. She was among the people who spoke out against the proposed ordinance last week.
My goal was to show up at City Council, clearly state my opposition to it, and then follow up with what I think could be some guardrails that would be appropriate to incorporate in the ordinance.
The morning after last week's meeting, she emailed city councilors a list of possible amendments. And now her input is reflected in the changes unanimously approved last night.
So we're hearing passionate people on both sides, and I think it's just striking that correct balance that, we want to have clean, safe parks. We also want to take care of anybody who, is experiencing homelessness.
The amendments would require the city to try to connect a would-be violator with an organization that helps people battling homelessness. Another amendment would require at least a 24-hour delay before the city could remove a temporary dwelling. Finally, a third amendment would require the temporary storage of personal items that are taken.
These amendments are really important because a codified process and system for how we enforce it. I was really nervous about just putting out a law and what could be done with it in the future.
While I struggled with this ordinance from the beginning, the version that we have seen come forward with the amendments is one I believe our law enforcement can appropriately and responsibly use as a tool.
And now Dan Santella joins us. Hi, Dan.
Hey, Summer.
So tell me a little bit about who you talked to yesterday, because while this is, Sioux Falls is something that's been about the city council, we saw it extend to leadership outside of the city council.
Yeah. One of the elements that was noteworthy of this story includes leadership in the state legislature. Caden Whitman, minority whip out in the State House in Pierre. She lives in Central Sioux Falls. She represents that area. She has experience working at a shelter that works with people battling homelessness, the Bishop W. Hospitality House. The two shelters are in her district. She wasn't happy with this ordinance. She came to the first reading, public input. She spoke about her opposition, why she was opposed to it. And then the next morning, she emailed councilors possible amendments. They took that into account. Rich Mercoris, the city council's chair, told me about that collaboration with Whitman, and her suggested guardrails, as she phrases them, are incorporated in these amendments that were unanimously approved by the council this week.
Yeah, and you also talked to Rich, and he, whether he mentioned it or you mentioned it, but he also looked to people outside of the state to do like a little bit of research to see what other towns were doing. Tell me a little bit about what he did there.
Yeah, one nearby city that we often think of as comparable to Sioux Falls, Des Moines, Iowa. Then also another one farther away, Spokane, Washington. He said he spoke with officials in those cities about how they have faced these issues themselves. He incorporated that, a lot of public input he got, and then also Caden Whitman's thoughts and suggested amendments as well. All those came together after the city council had passed it at a first reading, sending on to the second reading. They amended it significantly with three main changes that got unanimous support. Now, this is rare because you usually have the first and second reading, and then something becomes policy. It's going to have to go to a third reading next week.
Yeah, and I think it's comforting to know that these guys, when they're on our city councils and even on our state legislature, that they're, doing the research and putting in the time and the effort. It's not just like one person's opinion on the city council. Like, they're researching whether it's something as big as this or probably even some of what we would consider smaller issues, but, they're looking into that stuff. Tell me a little bit about how exactly, because, we saw it in the pack briefly, but how exactly did this ordinance change and what are those changes that were made?
One, these amendments will mandate that the city seeks to connect someone staying in such a dwelling with a service provider like the Bishop Dudley Hospitality House, the Union Gospel Mission, to help potentially them find more stable housing. They have to do that, have to make that attempt. A dwelling could not be immediately cleared. There has to be at least 24 hours delay if the city is going to do that, in addition to making that try to make that connection with the service provider. And also, if there is a clearing of a dwelling, any personal effects have to be temporarily saved. For someone who is in unstable housing, that's all they have right there. Their birth certificate, their driver's license, their social security card, that could all be there. And throwing that away could be tremendously detrimental to someone. We know that getting an apartment, getting a job, finding your footing, if you don't have your personal documents, that can be tremendously difficult, if not impossible.
Yeah. And an underlying theme that we kept seeing from people is one thing is, what is the next steps? And then, we need to showing a little bit more of a humanitarian side instead of just taking away these encampments. And I feel like these amendments really answer that, with trying to connect them. But how do you feel do you feel like that was fully addressed? Are people happy with these amendments and that it's sort of meeting a little bit more of not just taking away their encampments, but also connecting them with who needs to be?
The question of what's next is still a little unclear.
Sure.
Let's say an attempt is made to connect someone with a service provider. Let's say those 24 hours pass. If there is a clearing of a dwelling, exactly what that means for someone in violation of that ordinance, exactly what the ramifications would be, and where they would go potentially next, those are questions we're going to continue to explore. And I've wondered those, and this story just is ongoing.
Yes.
And they'll have its third reading next week. It will probably pass and become policy. And then we'll start to find out how this ordinance that was proposed could be put into practice.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds. And obviously, we're going to continue to follow it as we figure out more. Is there anything else that you would like to add about this story, Dan?
Well, just as usual, I appreciate how frankly the counselors and Whitman spoke, sharing their thoughts. Not only Rich McCourse, but Jennifer Siggety on the council talking about these issues, and Whitman as well, and their availability as public officials, always appreciated.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dan. Well, coming up, we take a look at some construction on Cliff Avenue and hear how it will affect students at a Sioux Falls high school. That's coming up on Inside the Newsroom. Welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. As the start of the new school year ramps up, so does the traffic in Sioux Falls. Julia Lynn gives us an update on a major road project near Lincoln High School and shares what drivers should know.
Whether you're on your way to work or school, the city of Sioux Falls is reminding drivers to proceed with caution as part of Cliff Avenue is set to open.
When school opens next week, we'll have one lane of traffic open in each direction through the project limits.
Road work for the Cliff Avenue and I-229 interchange is estimated at nearly $50 million and expected to be finished in June of 2027.
Overall, there's a lot of work left to be done, but it's went very well.
Sioux Falls School District's new superintendent, Jamie Nold, says leaving Lincoln High School's parking lot has been a challenge.
It here has been a very difficult exit for many years, and so to have that improved and to have that access and the safety for our kids.
Starting Thursday, all access points into Lincoln High School will be open, and Nold wants drivers to be prepared as the school year starts.
We need families to truly plan ahead and to leave early, to leave home from an earlier time period than you would normally take, to make sure you know how some of that exchange would go so you get there on time.
The city of Sioux Falls says drivers that aren't going to school should still continue taking those alternate routes when the school year starts next week.
And now Julia Lynn joins us. Julia, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Hi, Summer.
I know the last thing a lot of people probably want to think about is the start of school. I mean,
I know.
Parents are excited, but teacher and students are probably like,
For sure, the summer went by too fast.
It really did. And I think the people who are doing this construction are probably like, oh, if we could have just a little more time before the students have to come back. How long has this road work been going on?
Yeah, so it started earlier this year, I believe in the springtime, and it was, right as school was getting out, and they've been working away, even, against all the rain we've had this summer to get as much done as they can.
Yeah. Why, I guess, was this road a trouble issue in the first place, or what exactly are they wanting to change that's going to be different from before?
Yeah, so Cliff Avenue already in itself is a busy road, but as the superintendent for the Sioux Falls School District said, it's right next to the high school, so you're already having newer drivers trying to go in and out during those busy times, when school starts and when school gets out. And as you know, Summer, it can be a little difficult, crossing two-lane traffic. So he said that area, of course, has always been busy, especially when you're getting students now in the mix. And then the 41st Street and then the 229 interchange also was pretty close. And they believe that it wasn't really aligning, I guess, with how the roads work. So this new project is going to align them. So the parking lot and the 41st Street will be pretty aligned now, and they'll have traffic lights and just be a lot safer for students and drivers.
I was going to say, I know when I was in high school, I got rear-ended in the high school parking lot. So I just, you
can imagine.
You can imagine, it's hard enough for some high schoolers to drive in a high school parking lot, let alone, a busy street such as Cliff Avenue.
Yep.
So you were there yesterday. What does the road look like right now, and how is that going to change before school officially starts?
Yeah, so if you're driving on it now, part of Cliff Avenue is closed. You're seeing, cement trucks, they're paving it just this week so people can start driving on it starting next Thursday, this coming Thursday as school starts. So that aligns with the start date of school. So people will be able to drive through Cliff Avenue, but only just one lane will be open, not both. So crews will still be working throughout the year there, but there will be some relief, of course, because now people can actually drive through Cliff Avenue, don't have to turn around through neighborhoods or anything like that on the detours.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be nice. And we all know how construction slows you down, when you have something that's usually a 2-lane down to a 1-lane. It always makes it a little difficult. So what do they want the Lincoln High School students or anybody driving through that area to know, especially ahead of the school year?
Well, Zach, you could see in the video as well, there's tons of cones there. So it's a little bit tighter of a squeeze than usual. So the city said, expect delays. Like you said, when you're going from a 2-lane to a 1-lane, it's going to be a lot slower, especially with those traffic lights there. But just proceed with caution, especially for those newer drivers going to Lincoln High School as the school year starts next week. They said leave your house earlier. Of course, just expect delays. And then they also said commuters that, aren't going to school should stick to those alternate routes. If you can find a different way to work, they really encourage that just to give our students a little bit more ease going into the start of the school year.
Yeah, I know I will be avoiding Cliff Avenue at all costs, but I never have to go over there. So
exactly.
I'm the lucky one. Is there anything else that you want to add from your story or anything you think that drivers should know?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, as the school year ramps up, you're going to expect more people on the roads. And the biggest thing they kind of honed in yesterday is just, be courteous on the streets, be kind to your drivers. I know sometimes I'm an anxious driver. I'm just like, please let me in. So just, be aware of, your neighbors out there on the roads and just be kind.
Yes. Great advice that we all could learn from, Julia. Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Summer. Yeah.
After the break, we take you down to South Dakota's easternmost town after it was hit hard by a storm a couple of weeks ago. That's coming up on Inside the Newsroom. Welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. It's been 2 weeks since a storm tore through the small town of Hudson, South Dakota, but it's been day after day of cleanup ever since. Straight line winds in the Hudson area were clocked at 90 to 100 miles an hour. The storm sent trees and other debris into the air, blocking streets and damaging homes. Carly Phillips takes us back to the town of 300 for an update on the cleanup.
The small town of Hudson has faced a big-time cleanup the last 2 weeks. Ripped off rooftops, toppled playsets, and a dented-in grain bin are just a few signs of the destruction that took place. Some of that damage, from roofs to tree branches to other forms of debris, have ended up in piles like this one behind me, waiting to be picked up.
We've got 4 of those big piles, and they're massive. We've got somebody coming that's going to chip those up and use them at an ethanol plant, so it'll go to a good purpose.
Cleanup is still underway, but for many, the memory of the storm is still fresh.
It was quite a shock to see what happened.
Strong winds destroyed part of Jim Sadler's shop, including his entire roof.
When I came here and the building was collapsed, the one wall was blown out, and the rest of the roof had fallen into the building, I was surprised, I'll say that.
But in just a couple weeks, small town cleanup efforts have made a big difference in helping Sadler rebuild.
Had people here 24 hours a day, send people in to help clean up, trucks, all kinds of heavy equipment. It was a real blessing to watch the community pull together and work like that.
And through all of its recovery efforts, the town's spirit remains strong.
That's all you can do. I mean, you can clean it up and keep on going.
And now Carly Phillips joins us. Carly, thanks for being in with us today.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, news is always changing, and a lot of people probably, to an extent, if you're not from Hudson, you sort of forgot about how the storm rocked their world, essentially. Why did we decide to revisit Hudson yesterday?
Yeah, Hudson was definitely hit pretty hard with that storm and all that wind that we got a couple weeks ago. And when we initially went down there, I mean, the roads were completely covered with trees and other, things from homes and stuff that had flown off. But I think we wanted to go back because the cleanup was still going on, and then also just to see the progress that they've made in just that short amount of time.
Yeah, I have family who live up in Watertown, and I know Watertown didn't have near the damage that Hudson did, but up in Watertown, there was a time when they had like 99 per mile hour winds on the lake, and so, trees are uprooted. And even yesterday, I was talking to a friend who has a house on the lake, and they were like, we're still trying to fix stuff. Like, there's still like a massive hole in our roof. They're still trying to clean up. And like I said, nothing to the extent of what Hudson had, but it takes weeks sometimes to clean this up, if not longer. What did you see while you were down there yesterday?
Yesterday, it looked really, really good compared to the video and the pictures that we had got before and that we saw, the owner of the filling station, how his roof was completely destroyed. You drive through town now and the streets are pretty much wide open again. And obviously there's still some damage and piles of trees and stuff, but it's looking a lot better. And I was really surprised and really happy to see that when I went back through.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. So clearly, thankfully, those cleanup efforts are going. But what did they say, that these past 2 weeks have looked like as far as what they've had to do to help get it to such a better place than it was 2 weeks ago?
When I talked to the mayor, he kind of said they're past that recovery process and now it's more of the rebuilding process. So they've kind of cleaned up all the trees and all the things out of the road, that initial part of the cleanup. But now they are really trying to focus on the rebuilding part, rebuilding some of the houses or buildings that were damaged, or that big grain bin that one of the roofs got tore off of that and the other one was dented in. And then they also have piles of debris that people are going to come and pick up. So it's kind of that just, actually going in and fixing some of that damage now is kind of what they're focusing on now.
Yeah, and it was encouraging. I know that one who you talked to in the package, that they were like, yeah, and people have been here every day and they're helping us get it back up, and that they're already back up is absolutely remarkable.
Yes.
I know a lot of people, when something like this happens, they want to know how they can help or what they can do. Is there anything that people can do and can help, or are they sort of like, actually the best thing you can do is just let us heal and not try to come in? Or like, what's the vibes?
I think definitely, you don't want to overstep for sure, but I think, if you were to drive through town and you see people, cleaning up, it never hurts to ask. The mayor said people are welcome to come back into Hudson, if they need to be there. But I think, the more help, the better to help them rebuild the town of Hudson.
Yeah, it's definitely, I know it's been 2 weeks and they're doing great so far, but it's definitely going to be a little bit longer than a 2-week process. Is there anything else that you want people to know about your story or how the town of Hudson's doing?
I mean, I think we covered it pretty good, but yeah, like I said, just me as a reporter being there and getting to see their progress was really, really great to see. So
it's really great to see, after you've seen a community go through so much, it's great to see them heal and know that there is light on the other side of the tunnel. So thank you so much, Carly. Well, that is all the time that we have for now. Thank you so much for watching Inside the Newsroom. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 1 p.m.